Get close, everybody, get close. We got some important stuff to talk about. Season 4 is almost upon us. And oh boy, am I excited. No! I really wish I could say I am, but under the current circumstances... Hello everybody, welcome to the video. My name is Midway and today I want to discuss what's going to happen with the healer meta in Season 4 of Shadowlands. Before we get into it though, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and let me know what you think about the video down in the comments. But now let's get into it. So we know there is going to be nerfs to Tester Warlocks and there is going to be nerfs to Survival Hunters. However, there is nothing planned for healers. So I might just be high on Hopium, but I do believe we are due for a blue post coming up in the next few days because we are missing some critical information. Now, what I mean by that is that we still do not know how we're even going to be upgrading legendaries in Season 4, if at all, so I do believe that this will be explained coming up in the next few days. However, this could also come along with some other information regarding, for example, some healer tuning. Now, I did make a couple tweets recently talking about how this healer tuning could be done and the things that I do believe that would be doing a lot of good for the healer meta in Season 4. So we're going to be going through those and what I do believe is going to be the tier list coming up in Season 4 for healers in particular. Okay, tier list, speedrun 3, 2, 1, go. There you go. So if hypothetically we were to actually get some healer tuning happening and we were to know that in the next few days, what I would personally like to see would be, of course, some damage tuning down for Holy Priests and for Resto Shamans. Now, the biggest problem is not the healing power of these two specs, although that is also an issue in itself. They are really strong healers. However, it is the damage that's really making anything else just not that viable. So on the one hand, we have Holy Priests doing upwards of 10k overalls in some dungeons with Boon of the Ascended and Divine Star, as well as bringing to the table things like PI and Power Over Fortitude, which are really strong for pushing high keys. They also have insane amounts of healing through their heal legendary that allows them to just spam one button for amounts of healing that shouldn't be legal, as well as they have their power wards which can allow them to burst a lot of single target heal or some AoE heal. They have a pretty strong kit overall. And on the other hand, we have Resto Shamans bringing just as much damage to the table with Vesper Totem and the Air 3 Lego, as well as things like Ancestral Vigor giving you 10% more HP when you are healed, which is also just as strong as Power Over Fortitude because that's always going to be up, as well as really strong healing through Riptide and Healing Wave and Healing Surge spam, Cloudburst, Ascendance, Healing Rain, the Kick. They have so much utility in the form of AoE stuns, slows, Hex. They have a pretty strong kit, but the biggest problem is just that they do a lot of numbers. And don't even get me started talking about the Curse spell. So what ends up happening is you have two healer specs that are taking upwards of 80% of all the keys done on a 25 and up level. Sounds extremely balanced if you ask me. So as a result, us Holy Paladins, as well as Resto Druids and Mist Weavers are left to rot in the dirt. Oh, what are you saying? This priest? What's that? But Midway, Paladins were so strong in Season 1 and Season 2, they were meta for so long and nothing was done about it. Wrong, they were nerfed several times and they just didn't strike the mark with it. Now, some people are saying that this season doesn't matter because it's just going to be for funsies before we get dragonflight, and therefore the meta shouldn't matter whatsoever because it's not going to be competitive. People are not going to care about it as much, but I do believe that's just bonkers. This season is going to be just like any other season. There is going to be score to be gained, there is going to be a ladder reset, you get a title at the end of the season if you get rank 1, and you will be able to get a mount if you get to 2.5. There is all the pillars of a normal season in place. Yes, it is true we are getting rehashed dungeons that we've already seen in the past and most people are not too excited about them, and the raiding content is just going to be a farm fiesta for getting some loot piñatas, which I personally don't mind too much. But no matter what you think, there is still people going to look forward to playing this game, getting into Season 4 and dabbling into some Mythic Plus, and they're gonna be very disappointed when they find out that they're still going to have just as hard of a time to get into keys because the LFG is just more and more pushing for Flavor of the Month rerolls. Okay, so what are some of the solutions that I propose that should be applied so we can all have a better healer ecosystem getting into Shadowlands Season 4? Well, let's start with Holy Priest. Okay, so as I mentioned before, Holy Priest have two spells that are the clear outliers when it comes to damage in Mythic Plus, and those are Boon of the Ascended and Divine Star. Now, Boon of the Ascended has the downside that would also be affecting the raiding scene because these priests do rely on this spell to do a lot of their healing through atonements, and therefore tweaking it down could cause massive ripples. But you could tweak down the AoE part from Boon of the Ascended without really affecting rating all that much. At least that would be a way of doing it without touching their single target damage, which could be, or rather is, usually the biggest part of the burst that these priests do, and therefore you can then just tweak down Mythic Plus without really affecting the raid and getting some good tuning done to Holy Priest. Now, what about Divine Star? Divine Star has the advantage of having two components to it. It has the damage component and the healing component. Right now, you could just tune down the damage component without actually affecting the healing part of it. So you would get a little bit of a nerf without having a massive change happening. The damage of the spec would just be a little bit lower, and that's all we want without actually screwing up their viability when it comes to healing rates or Mythic Plus. They would just be doing numbers closer to what the rest of the specs are doing. Something else could be done to Holy Priest, for example. There is Holy Nova. Damage could be tuned down, as well as capping Divine Star's damage. Right now it's only capped for healing. It could also be applied for damage, but I don't want to see any more caps applied. I think that would be extremely toxic and probably not for the best. So just tuning down the damage of Divine Star would already be a good start. Now, Resto Shamans is a little bit more of a pickle, because if you touch Vesper Totem, you are going to be affecting all the other DPS specs as well. And I do not know if they play Kyrian and Mythic Plus, but that doesn't really matter. If you touch something that's going to be affecting every other aspect in the game, it's going to be a bit harder. And when it comes to DPSers, they always want to do as much damage as possible. It's not that instrumental to them to just do the mechanics like, for example, Boon of the Ascended is for this priest in raids. It's just much more about the pure numbers they're doing. And therefore, yeah, Vesper Totem would be a bit harder to nerf without causing a ripple effect. But again, I do not know if it's even being used by other Shaman specs in Mythic Plus or Arena or whatever. So that could also be studied. There's other ways of nerfing this, like conduits and such. But yeah, there's other ways also of nerfing Resto Shaman. For example, Chain Lightning could be nerfed. You could also nerf, for example, the Earth Ellie Lego could be tuned down in the amount of damage that it does. However, you could also make it so that maybe it doesn't die as often, so it doesn't feel as bad getting this nerf, and then your Earth Ellie just dies immediately, because that's what usually happens. You use Earth Ellie, and 45 weeks, it gets aggro, it gets killed in 2 seconds, and then you just wasted an entire legendary for nothing. That would suck dick, and therefore I do believe that maybe you could buff the HP of the Earth Ellie, or maybe just its defenses. But yeah, there is ways of tuning things down. You have the option of just nerfing the damage of some of the core abilities of the spec just for the spec of Resto without affecting the other specs. That doesn't happen with Covenant abilities, so that's a bit harder, and therefore that's why I think that maybe nerfing Chain Lightning or nerfing the Earth Lego will be more viable. But I think the big problem here is, of course, Vesper Totem. Okay, so that would be a big way, an easy way of tuning down the AoE damage potential of a Holy Priest as well as Shamans, and therefore we would get a bit more of a healthier meta for healers in Season 4. We could also buff the underperformers, for example, buffing Consecration damage, buffing Sunfire damage for Resto Druids, and buffing Spinning Crane Kick for Mistweavers, and that way we could have an easy solution to make the AoE damage potential and the overalls, after all, from those 3 specs just be a little bit more in line with the other 2 outliers. And I do believe that these priests have real no salvation here. The big problem is that Holy Priests are bringing a lot of spot healing to the table with their heal legendary, and there's just a big design gap between these 2 specs that are just favoring Holy Priests right now too much. The damage difference wouldn't be too bad, but I just do believe that there's no salvation for this priest whenever this legendary is such a big factor in the way the Holy Priest is playing right now. So yeah, that's the way that I think that tuning the healers for Season 4 would bring a bigger, or rather a better and healthier healer meta. So yes, unless something is done, the Season 4 meta will look exactly the same for us healers as the Season 3 meta, and Holy Paladins will remain somewhere in the middle of the pack along with Druids. So yeah, we are just going to be falling even more out of favor in LFG. If you are one like me having to pug most of their keys right now, it's going to be really sucky for us, because it's so easy to reroll that people are just going to more and more get into a Holy Priest or a Resto Shaman so they can get into more groups, and that's just how it is. So I do still have some high hopes that something might be done and some changes will come through and announced in the next few days in this blue post that I mentioned. But if this is not the case, well, things will just remain as I mentioned. Season 4 will be the same as Season 3 and Forge. Well, that's all I have for you today, everybody. Let me know what you thought about the video down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, as well as check out the links in the description for my Twitch, my Twitter, and Discord. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.